The Sikha is look at the Sikha Chilik Tesvop, second Sikha to Chanukah. It's a lot of protein in the Sikha. It's a long Sikha, a lot of protein here. And we have to keep cheshbon of the wording of the Rambam and the Gemara. It's a lot of details here, so we'll can't be too long, so we'll try to do the best. Besim Chanukah is the Rambam. At the end of the halachas of Chanukah, the Rambam says like this. What happens if a person only has enough money for one thing, or to buy Shabbos candles, or to buy Chanukah candles? In other words, he doesn't have enough money for both. Or a ner beise v'kiddushem. Another example, he only has enough money for one, or for Shabbos candles. That's called ner beise, the candles for the house on Shabbos, Friday night, and for kiddush. He can't buy both. Can't buy wine for kiddush, and also doesn't have enough money, and also to buy candles. Which one comes first? So the Rambam says ner beise kedem. So in both of these cases, to buy Shabbos candles, to have Shabbos candles, that comes first. Why? Sholom beise, because Shabbos candles has to do with Sholom bayis. What says with Sholom bayis? The Rebbe will bring it later that one of the reasons why we have Shabbos candles is because you might, if they're not going to have candles and you're going to come home, it'll be dark. You might stumble over something, eitz ve'even, and that'll cause argument, and there won't be Sholom bayis. Or another thing, that if you won't have candles, it will be dark, so your family will be mitzvah that they're sitting in the dark. So the union of Shabbos was Sholom bayis comes first, and the Rambam brings that ayah that Sholom bayis is that important. We see that the name of Hashem, is erased in order to make Sholom between a man and a wife. What's the case? The case is by a seita. By a seita, if a man tells his wife not to go to be in a private room with a certain man, and she doesn't listen, she goes, and we don't know if she's guilty of doing something wrong or not. If she's guilty, then she is not allowed to go back to her husband, etc., etc. But we don't know. So in order to verify it, the din is that you take her to the Beis Hamikdash, and you take the water from the Beis Hamikdash, you put in some sand from the Beis Hamikdash, and then you write a certain psukim on a piece of parchment, and it has Hashem's name there, and you have to erase those words into the cup of water, and you give her to drink. And that'll show if she's guilty, she's going to die, and if not, she will go home and she'll be blessed, etc., etc. Hopefully, she will be found to be innocent. And in order to make her innocent, and she should be able to go back to her husband, because if she doesn't drink from it, she's forbidden to be with her husband. So in order to make sure that she'll be able to go back to her husband, you do this process. So part of the process is you erase Hashem's name. It's a big aveda to erase Hashem's name, Yud Kei Vav Kei. But the Eibush said to do it in order to bring Sholom bayis. So here the Rambam brings a raya that Sholom bayis is so strong that you erase Hashem's name, which is something, so to speak, terrible, in order to make Sholom between the husband and his wife. And then the Rambam adds another point. Godel HaSholom. B'chal Sholom is very great. Shekol HaTeirah nitna la'aseh Sholom beilim, because the whole Torah was given to make Sholom in the world. Shenamar, the Pasuk says, the ways of Torah are pleasant ways, pleasant, Nayam, Sholom, and all the paths of Torah is Sholom. So this goes on the whole Torah. So the Rambam adds, first he says, we have a raya that Sholom bayis is so important, so great, that even allowed to erase Hashem's name for Sholom bayis. And then he adds another point. Sholom is so great, the whole Torah was given in order to make Sholom, and he brings the post. So the Rebbe says that Mokeh from there halacha is a Masechta Shabbos. The Mokeh, the source of this halacha, that when you have a choice only of one thing, and the two situations, two cases, if you have a choice or to use the money to buy candles for Shabbos or to use candles for Chanukah, candles of Shabbos comes first. And also the same thing if you have money for the candles of Shabbos or wine, which one comes first? Also the union of candles for Shabbos comes first. And that is written in the Gemara Shabbos. Over dort steht nor, but in the Gemara it only says this. Ner beise odi Sholom beise, that the candles for Shabbos come first, and the Lashon there is not first. The Lashon is negated to later. It's odif, it's better. Ner Shabbos, Ner Beise, which is Ner Shabbos, is better because that's Sholom bayis. It doesn't say anything more. Apart from Verstehen, we have to understand. Why does the Rambam, what forces the Rambam to add a proof? The Gemara doesn't add any proof. The Gemara just says the fact. The fact is Sholom bayis is better. Rambam not only says that, but the Rambam adds araya because we see that the name of Hashem is allowed to be erased for shalom bayis. What makes the Rambam say? If the Gemara doesn't say it, why does the Rambam have to say it? Well, mainly we have a neat explanation. Was noch the raya after it brings the raya Sharei Hashem that we see that you could erase Hashem's name for the sake of shalom bayis. Is a noch meisav anayin. He even adds something else, a new thing completely. God Allah shalom shekol Torah nitna. Shalom is so important that the whole Torah was given for shalom. Why does the Rambam have to even add? Certainly, why does he have to add that? And then the Rebbe says in brackets, it's very the big deicha, hard to say. At the time of the Rambam is Meisik Lipsov Godel Shalom. The reason why the Rambam adds that Shalom B'chal is so great, the Torah was given only to make Shalom. So could be maybe it is L'Sayim B'Dover Teiv. To finish off, because this finishes off the halachas. So the Rambam wants to finish off with something good. So he finished it off by adding that the whole Torah was given for Shalom. It's hard to say that. If the Rambam wouldn't add those words, he would just finish what he said. Finish with what he said before, that the name of Hashem is erased to make Shalom ben husband to wife. So the last words would be Shalom ben Yishlishtei. Also would have been finishing off with a good thing. And why does he have to add a new thing to that? Now, someone might say that even though it would finish off that the name of the Eibishter could be erased to bring Shalom and Nishlish, because when it says to make Shalom, it's all as a hemshech to erase for that. So that's why he adds the other thing, that the Shalom is sort of not add statement and leave just with the statement before, but change the lashon a little bit. He could have said like this: Shalom Beis Kedem, Shalom Beis comes first. Sharei Hashem nimchet glas Shalom, because the name, you see, the name of Hashem is erased to make Shalom. Valkei not Ner Beis Kedem, therefore the Ner Shabbos comes first. He also would have finished of a tape. So you can't say the reason the Rambam adds that last statement is just because he wants to finish up with something good. So we're back to the question: why does he add that? So the question really is more important from the fact that he erased Hashem's name. When the Gemara doesn't bring that proof, certainly why does the Rambam add this whole thing that Godel Shalom, that the Torah was given only to make Shalom in the world? We have to understand something else. The Etzem Raya. The Raya itself is not so clear. What's the Raya? What are we bringing a Raya for? In Pashtas, if you learn a simple pshat in Rambam, main the Rambam Aruz bringing Hashem Nimchem Ras Shalom. Why does he bring this whole thing that you should erase Hashem's name in order to bring Shalom? What is that? To show, why does he bring it? To bring out the Gedel Mailas HaSholem, well, how important Shalom is. As it says, wants to bring a raya that Shalom is very important, and that pushes away other things. That's exactly what he's trying to say here. Shabbos candles pushes away Chanukah candles. Why? Because Shabbos candles is Shalom. To prove that, he sees there's another Aveda that we're doing, something we're doing wrong, so to speak, but you should do it in order to bring Shalom. So we take something that's very strict in Torah mitzvahs, which is Mechikas Hashem, erasing Hashem's name, is if that Shalom is so important, so much so, that we push away the Aveda of erasing Hashem's name in order to bring Shalom, the Mikolish cannot Ner Beis is the Ner Chanukah. So certainly Shalom Bayis pushes away Ner Chanukah. If it could push away the Aveda of such a big, terrible Aveda of erasing Hashem's name, it could push away the mitzvah of Ner Chanukah. That's the push of Pshat Rambam. The two things are not compared. You can't compare them. When we say that you erase Hashem's name by a seite to make Shalom, there it's a real Shalom. If not for this, she would be forbidden to her husband. So we're talking about doing Shalom as very important, a very strong inyan of Shalom, to allow a woman go back to her husband. A Shalom was his negay and kiyum v'chayim mishpacha. Shalom and negay push her to the family life. When Shechina shuri b'nayim, if she goes back to her husband, it says if her husband and wife are together, the Shechina is there. Sheil zayim mizbeach meilid mois v'chul. The Gemara says if you divorce your wife, the mizbeach cries, sheds tears, and many other things. B'chul the Rebbe says other things we find. So that is a real Shalom. Is mikol high time for this reason. Vekta sibet yaharkat b'mechikas Hashem. So you say because it's such an important type of Shalom that overweighs the Isser of erasing Hashem's name. Mashenka, the Sholem on their basis, the Sholem by lighting Shabbos candles, what is it for? Staka to make Sholem. Was kommt nur zu verhitten, when it comes that you shouldn't stumble over a piece of wood or a stone. Oder weil bnei Beisim mitzvah and leisha b'cheshech. If you don't have a candle in the family, we sit in the darkness. It's not so good, not so comfortable. It's not Sholem, it's a problem. But that Sholem is not such a great thing that you're doing. It's my rayas. Their Sholem is an another mitzvah. How do we know the Sholem of not being dark in the house is so important that it could push away a mitzvah? Ubifrat pirsumenise from their the mitzvah of Chanukah, and it has a mitzvah not of lighting the candles. It's pirsumenise to spread the nest, which is a mitzvah. So the fact that we're allowed to do something because of Sholem and pushes away that other thing, that could be only one that's a special union of Sholem, such an important union of Sholem. But from that, there's no proof that in the case of Sholem, which is only by Shabbos candles, which is not that great, that over there also it pushes away another mitzvah. A second question, which basically is a third question. In the Metzem Din is the Rambam Katzer Meshana from Lashon HaGemara. In the Din itself, that candles of Shabbos come first, the Rambam changes the Lashon of the Gemara and is Mekatzer. He makes it shorter. Meaning like this. Number one, in Gemara, he doesn't say found. The Gemara, the two dinim, the two cases that Rambam talks about in the Gemara, it's separate cases. The Gemara says like this: Ner Beisei, Ner Chanukah. If you have only enough to buy candles for Shabbos or candles for Chanukah, Ner Beisei order. Right away, Paskin. The candles of Shabbos come first. Mishum Shalom Beisei, Shalom Bayit. Then it goes another case. Ner Beisei v'Kiddush Hayom. If you have only enough money to buy Shabbos candles or wine, Ner Beisei order. Here also, Shabbos candles is better, Mishum Shalom Beisei, because Shalom Bayit. So the Gemara makes it into two separate cases. The din is the same, but it says two separate cases. The Rambam is a Beit Kelul name above it. The Rambam puts it together. Look back in the beginning of the Sikha, the Lashon of the Rambam. He says, Ner Beisei v'Ner Chanukah. Ein Ner Beisei v'Kiddush Hayom. Ner Beisei Kedem. So here the Rambam is Mekatzer. He says it's shorter and different. He doesn't make it into two. And number two, the Lashon HaGemara is Ner Beisei Odiv. In Gemara it says Ner Beisei, the Shabbos candles, is better. And the Rambam is Mishana, the Rambam changes and writes Ner Beisei Kedem. The lighting of the Shabbos candle is first. Now, superficially, people say, oh, it's a different Lashon. But in the Rambam, everything is Meduik, so there must be a special reason for it. That man does verstehen behagdim. So the Rebbe says to explain these things, we'll explain by first saying like this. Says you do as if the words for the Rambam stellt rein halachas is bediuk. That the Rambam, not only every word in each halacha is bediuk, is exact, even the place where he puts it. In which halachas he puts it. Stellt the shaila, so there's a question here. Pavos hat gestellt dem din as ner beisis kedem und ner chanik in hilchas chanik and in hilchas Shabbos. Why does he write this din that the Shabbos candles come before Chanukah candles? He wrote it in hilchas Chanukah. He didn't write it in hilchas Shabbos. What are we saying here? The mile of Shabbos, that Shabbos is ner Shabbos is more important. So why does he write hilchas Chanukah? Now the Rebbe explains. Chod Shados is nit kan din was is negei yed Shabbos, even though it's not a din that applies to every Shabbos. There was Shabbos Chanukah. It's a din only applies to Shabbos Chanukah. So maybe you could say that's why it's written in hilchas Chanukah. But the Rebbe says no. Either sober adin with the adgosha nachroi is ner Shabbos. It's only for Shabbos Chanukah. But lepel, what is the din here? That Shabbos is stronger, so it belongs to Shabbos. Adimayla from ner beisa, which is ner Shabbos, is kedem ner Chanukah. The din is that ner beisa, which is ner Shabbos, is stronger before ner Chanukah. Hotter es lochur gedaf schreiben in hilchas Shabbos. Should have written hilchas Shabbos. Dit mir wird noch starker mit dem zweiten din. The question is greater on the second din, which is had nothing to do with Chanukah b'chlal. The case of ner beisei v'Kiddush Hayom. If you have enough money only for ner Shabbos or Kiddush, so the din is ner Shabbos comes first. But that ganze gescheichert mit hilchas Chanukah. That b'chal is not even a case of Chanukah. Nor bleis hilchas Shabbos. That's only connected to hilchas Shabbos. When they bring him to nor, so why does the Rambam Taka b'chal write it here? Agav the meshten din ner beisei v'ner Chanukah. Since he already wrote, what is the din if you only have enough money for Shabbos, ner Shabbos, and ner Chanukah? So you also, and the din is ner Shabbos comes first. So you also put in ner Shabbos and Kiddush. So it would make more sense, since one of the two dinim is complete in the gate of Shabbos, not at all to Chanukah. So he would make more sense as it obeyed the dinim gedafter einstellen hilchas Shabbos nicht hilchas Chanukah. Should have written both dinim in hilchas Shabbos, not in hilchas Chanukah. Nochmal, the question goes further. In Tur v'Shulchan Aruch gefindt man take dem din as ner Shabbos is kedem ner Chanukah in beide erte. In the Torah and the Shulchan Aruch, this din that which comes first, ner Shabbos or Ner Chanukah. And the halach is Ner Shabbos comes first. The Rambam, the Shulchan Aruch and the Tur and Shulchan Aruch write it in both places. Sai Hilchas Shabbos and Sai Hilchas Chanukah. Writes it in both places. So you see, he also writes it in Hilchas Shabbos. So B'meila, the Rambam could have written it in both places. But it should have been written in Hilchas Shabbos also. First he asked it should be written only in Hilchas Shabbos. But I feel if you want, you see over there, it's two places. Maybe you should write it in two places. But it should be also in Hilchas Shabbos. Now, feel im Tim Tzreimer, das ist nicht darke shel Rambam zu stellen, demselben Din in zwei Erte. If we're going to say this is not the style, so to speak, of the Rambam, to write the same Din in two places, Al derech, when we find the Klolei Rambam, we find in the rules, those that write the rules of how the Rambam wrote his Sefer, as ein derech is, this is the Lashon that they write in Yad Malachi, which is a Sefer, write the Klolim of the Rambam, he writes, as the derech is, Lefarish Dvora b'mokem echot, that he explains himself in one place, b'mokem echot says some Dvora. And in some places he doesn't say it clearly. While it is same because he relies on what he wrote before, so he doesn't write his dinim twice. We don't find this rule that he writes it only once and later he relies on what he wrote before. Like we see here, he even writes it sometimes twice. But the Rambam doesn't do that. So maybe you could say, so that's why the Rambam did not write it also in Hilchas Shabbos, in addition to Chas Chanukah, because the Rambam doesn't do that. But the Rebbe says, we'll skip for a moment the two paragraphs, because that's the middle thing, not important to the Hemshech, and let's go straight to further to the next. You can't say that in this case, this is what the Rambam did. He wrote it once here, and that's why he doesn't write it in Hilchas Shabbos, because he wrote it already. You can't say as mefarish dvora b'mokem echad the same of them. But in this case, he writes it once, and then he relies the second time on this. If you would want to write it only in one place, where would it belong? In Hilchas Shabbos, was kommt frier. That comes first, and then Hilchas Chanukah. Because the Rambam writes first, and then later he doesn't have to repeat it. So he has to write the first. So had he written the first time only and not write the second, he should have written in Hilchas Shabbos. That's the first. Especially that what does this show? This din shows the importance of Shabbos, of the Ner Shabbos. So that should have been the one place. And then not to write it in Hilchas Chanukah. That would make sense. And then you would say he wrote it once. He doesn't have to write it a second time. So you can't say this is the reason. Because if once it should have been written in Hilchas Shabbos. So the question comes back, why did he write this din? That Shabbos is more important, Ner Shabbos is more important in Hilchas Chanukah, not the Shabbos. Now let's go back to the parentheses before. When the Rebbe said there's a difference between the style of the Shulchan Aruch, Tur and Shulchan Aruch, and the style of the Rambam. That the Rambam, the Shulchan Aruch could sometimes repeat himself twice, and the Rambam doesn't do that. So the Rebbe gives a reason, which is not negated to the whole hemshech of the Sikha, but he just puts it in. The Ashleimer b'tamachidlik, we could say, what is the reason? Why is there a difference in Shulchan Aruch and the Rambam? Shulchan Aruch is kishmei keinu. The word Shulchan Aruch, what does Shulchan Aruch mean? Aruch means ready, prepared. The name is it. Zugegereite dinim of Sevisa b'shas askum demaisi dim izolton. Shulchan Aruch was written that when you come to a situation, you've got to know what to do. He makes it very clear to you. And therefore, ken zayin as gewisse dinim don't stehen zweimal. So therefore, it's possible it should be written twice. As if he doesn't be down, like in this case where he writes this din twice. But the din is, as he meant yodem aseg is likness ne Shabbos ne Chanukah. Is negela ma'is of a pale. Sai Hilchas Shabbos, sai Hilchas Chanukah. This din that if you don't have enough money for both, and money for Ner Shabbos comes first, it's negay sai to Chanukah, sai to Shabbos, which means the Rebbe doesn't say these words, but I'll explain what it means. When a person comes Shabbos Chanukah and he doesn't have enough money for both, what should he do? So Shulchan Aruch is made. Look it up right now and find out what the din is. Where will a person look for it? Now it's possible some people will think, let's look for it in Hilchas Chanukah. But somebody else says, well, question, let's look for Hilchas Shabbos. And the Shulchan Aruch was made ready that if you want to find it, you'll find it right away. So the Shulchan Aruch writes it both places. Mashenker a sefer ayat for Rambam. The Rambam didn't write a sefer like a Shulchan Aruch. If you need to know what to do, look it up. He's the Rambam writes in his introduction, Chibur zeh mekabel Teira Shebal Peh. My sefer is collection of Teira Shebal Peh, the whole Teira Shebal Peh. Sha'odim Keira Teira Shebal Tchila. Person can learn Chumash, the written Teira, v'chakach Keira Bazeh. Then he learns my sefer. V'yedei men Teira Shebal Peh kula. And you know all the halachas of Teira Shebal Peh. Ve'in tzarech likrei sefer Racha b'neyam, and you don't have to look for another sefer. That's what the Rambam writes, which means that the reason that the kavanah in Zayin Sefer, the kavanah of the Rambam writing his Sefer, is to wissen din to become educated in all the dinim. Not that a Sefer for you to look up when it's like that's Shulchan Aruch. He's observation. If he writes it once, so he knows the din already. He shouldn't write it again. So the Rambam doesn't write it again. So the question is, if there isn't a Rambam to write it again, so there's no reason to write it twice. But he should have written it once in Hilchas Shabbos. Why is it in Hilchas Chanukah? So the Rebbe says, continuing here, Siv Dalet. The Yashleima Rabbi is the explanation is this like this. When they gave them chiyuv together for Ner Shabbos, Zog the Rambam Hilchas Shabbos. When they talk about the mitzvah of Ner Shabbos, lighting Shabbos candles, what is, let's put it this way, the gather of the Shabbos candles? What is the main reason for it? So the Rambam writes, Adasi Bechlal Einik Shabbos. Part of enjoying Shabbos. Well, Kovet Shabbos, it's Kovet Shabbos. Schreibt er benit in Hilchas Shabbos, Adasi Tzulib Shalom Bayis. In Hilchas Shabbos, where there he writes the halacha, lighting Shabbos candles, he doesn't mention that Shalom Bayis, which is Shalei Koshel Beitz Ve'evan, that you shouldn't stumble over a piece of wood or stone, or that the father was going to base him in Stein and Leishim HaCheshech, his family will be sitting in it. He doesn't write it. He just writes it's a din of Shabbos. It says the Karosel Shabbos Einik. It's a day of pleasure, a day of covet. You get to give covet to Shabbos. That's candles does that. It doesn't mention that it's Shalom Bayis. There's a question. The Rambam halt Hilchas Chanukah as Ner Shabbos is in Yonah Shalom Bayis. In Hilchas Chanukah, the Rambam writes says clearly that it's Shalom Bayis. He gives the reason why. If you have a choice of Shabbos, of Neder Chanukah and Neder Shabbos is first. Why? Because it's Shalom Bayis. So the Rambam does hold it Shalom Bayis. So where should they have written? If this is the reason for the mitzvah of lighting Shabbos candles, so he should have written in Hilchas Shabbos where he gives the mitzvah, where he tells us the mitzvah of lighting Shabbos candles. The Rambam doesn't do that. There he writes something else. He only writes it here. The phone movement, that we understand. As Leitner Rambam, according to the Rambam, is that etzem achiyah from their Shabbos need to live shalom bayis nor to covet veinig. The Rambam holds the main reason, called the main gather, the main. If you classify it under which category does it go? It's under the category of einik Shabbos and covet Shabbos, not because of shalom bayis. Well, now for piyas durch ner Shabbos vertuv gitam bepeil didn't for shalom bayis. Even though the reason for it is because of covet and einik, but nevertheless, sof kol sof. If you have the candles, you will have shalom bayis. You won't fall, and they won't sit in the dark. This is not the main, what the mitzvah is, the main reason for the mitzvah. If you're going to say this, that really Neder Shabbos is not the concept of shalom bayis. It's a result that happens. But this is not the real reason. So now we don't understand the din. Ner beise odif mishum shalom. Ner beise odif mishum shalom beise. That when it comes to a question whether what comes first, Neder Shabbos and Neder Chanukah, Neder Shabbos comes first because of shalom bayis. Shalom bayis is doch nieder geder achiyuv mitzvah. That's not the mitzvah. The mitzvah is not because of shalom bayis. How does the Rambam say that? So therefore, the Rambam answers this question that we just have. Durch hereinstellen dem din nicht in Hilchas Shabbos or Hilchas Chanukah. That's why he didn't put it in Hilchas Shabbos, in Hilchas Chanukah. Because since this is not the gather of Shabbos candles, so he doesn't say it in Hilchas Shabbos. And even this din, that candles come before Ner Chanukah, he also doesn't write in Hilchas Shabbos, not in Hilchas Chanukah. And his Meisa, when he even adds the Raya, he has to bring a proof. Why is that better? We see we erase Hashem's name for Shalom Bayis. The meat is mechadish. By doing this, the Rambam tells us, Ados was ner basic, kedim shim shalom basic. This that ner Shabbos comes before ner Chanukah because it's shalom bayis. Is it's nit together in ner Shabbos. See, it's not the pshat because if Shabbos would be the main thing of ner Shabbos is shalom bayis, it's a gather in ner Shabbos. Rambam would have written in Hilchas Shabbos. He wants to tell us that it's not the gather of ner Shabbos. As in dem pashtei the adifus for ner Shabbos and there is the middeich ner Chanukah. That Shabbos, ner Shabbos is the inyan of shalom bayis. And since that's Shalom Bayis, it pushes away Ner Chanukah. Because this is Shalom Bayis. Rambam doesn't want to tell us that. For him, gesagt früher, Shalom Bayis, neither gather achiv mitzvahs Ner Shabbos. He wants us to know that's not it. It's not because Shalom Bayis, Ner Chanukah, Ner Shabbos is Shalom Bayis. Ner Chanukah seemingly is a different inyan, not Shalom Bayis. So Shalom Bayis pushes away the mitzvah of Ner Chanukah. We have a question, which one is more important? So Ner Shabbos, which is Shalom Bayis, pushes away. The Rambam says it's not that. Because Shalom is very important, not because Ner Shabbos has in it, the reason for Ner Shabbos is Shalom. It does have Shalom in it, because as we said before, the result is you have Shalom. And since Shalom is such an important thing, und das was a mitzvah wird abgestupt zu Libinyan HaSholem, when we say that mitzvah's Ner Chanukah gets pushed away because of something that is Shalom Bayis, is a snider geder von Chisa mitzvah. It's not the pshat that we push away the mitzvah of Ner Chanukah, because Ner Shabbos is Shalom Bayis. It's inyan the Shalom Bayis. No, that's not the pshat. Nor mis mekayem thereby me'en mitzvah zu, was wird bepeil abgelegt durch Shalom kelakam sifrei. Just to make it short, he's going to explain it more. Normally we learn that we have two mitzvahs that clash. We can't do both. So there's a dispute between the two mitzvahs. Ner Shabbos says, do me. Ner Chanukah says, do me. And there's a fight between the two. Which one wins? Ner Shabbos wins. Why? Because it's more important. It's Shalom Bayis. But the Rebbe is going to explain, it's not that there's a dispute between Ner Shabbos and Ner Chanukah. Ner Chanukah itself tells you, if because of me you will not have Ner Shabbos, do Ner Shabbos. It's not against Ner Chanukah, but pushes it away. Ner Chanukah itself, why? He's going to explain it soon. What it means is, dos was Ner Beis Kedem Mishuv Shalom Beis. This that Ner Shabbos is first because it is Shalom Bayis. Is Eich Mitzadem Geder B'Teichem Chanukah, because Chanukah is also Shalom. But it's a tale from Kol HaTorah Shnita Shalom. The Rambam brings that the whole Torah was made for Shalom. Every mitzvah in the Torah is in essence binyan of Shalom. So what's the essence of the mitzvah of Chanukah? Shalom. Therefore, when you have a mitzvah which physically is Shalom, because the mitzvah of Ner Shabbos, that's not the inyan of the mitzvah, but it physically causes Shalom. So Ner Chanukah says, my inyan is Shalom, because I'm part of the Torah, and Kol HaTorah is Shalom. I'm part of Shalom. But you are not only part of Shalom because you're a mitzvah, you're physically causing Shalom. Even though that's not the gather of your mitzvah, you're physically causing Shalom. My high time at the Rambam gestellt dem Din in Hilchas Chanukah to Sheila sein, das ist Hatchiyah von Chanukah. He wants to make sure that, it's in Hilchas Chanukah that not Pshat, it's Shabbos that pushes away Chanukah. Then he would write it in Hilchas Shabbos, that Shabbos is more, and their Shabbos is more important. He puts it in the Chanukah and say that, who says that you have to have Ner Shabbos, not Ner Chanukah? Not only Ner Shabbos says that. Ner Chanukah says that. Nor Azeh is Eich Mechayev the Rinyan from Chanukah. Chanukah does it. So that's why he doesn't put it in Shabbos, then you would think it's the Maila of Shabbos. It's not because the Maila of Shabbos, of Ner Shabbos. The Maila of the Sholem that's there, which Chanukah itself says, yes, since that's Sholem, and I'm also Sholem, but that's more Sholem, because that's a physical Sholem. By me, it's a Ruchnisdik. Every mitzvah is a Ruchnisdik Sholem. This is a physical Sholem, so it's even stronger. That's why it goes there. And then brings the Araya from them was Hashem Nimche Glas Sholem and Nishlishte. And he brings a proof to this from the fact that you erase Hashem's name, which is a terrible thing, in order to make Sholem. How does that prove that? Sholem is not as a grace as to the dem is medeicha dem harb nitzvah from Chikas Hashem. It's not the pshat Sholem is so big that because of that, it pushes away the Isser of writing Hashem's name. That's not what the Rambam means. Just like here also, it doesn't mean that Ner Shabbos pushes away Ner Chanukah. We find the same thing, just like we just said now, by Ner Shabbos, doesn't push it away Ner Chanukah. Chanukah itself says, yes, part of doing what the purpose of my mitzvah is Sholem, and Melech, do the real Sholem. The same thing here also, and he brings a raya. What's the pshat? It's not the pshat that comes to erase Hashem's name. Yes, you're allowed to erase Hashem's name because it's more important than the Yisur of erasing Hashem's name because of Sholem. He says, not that. That's the point that Rambam makes. You write Hashem dem Shem kedei zu meichik seinem. You write Hashem's name in order to erase it. That's the din. Kedei lasa Sholem b'nish li'ishtei, to make Sholem between husband and wife, which means mitzvahs ksives Hashem b'kedushosav v'teikfei, the mitzvah of writing Hashem's name, and writing Hashem's name with the proper kedusha and with the whole take of the whole strength of Hashem's name is pale v'nizgal of the demas of nimchik. You see that one of the greatness in the writing Hashem's name is to erase it. In this case, Torah says, write the name. It's not that you have a name written or you find something that Hashem's name is there and they tell you, erase it. You're allowed to erase it. Shalom Bayis. Torah tells you, write Hashem's name, which means the erasing of Hashem's name is part of the writing. It's the kavanah of the writing. The balda does bring shalom and nishlish. The sins does bring shalom with the husband and wife. So what do we see here? That there's a mitzvah writing a kedusha and writing Hashem's name. And that Kedusha of writing Hashem's name expresses itself in the erasing. That you should write it lechatchila to erase it. Why? Because Shalom Bayis. So we see here that it's not just that one is deicha, the other one pushes the other. So when the Rambam wants to prove that the Negei Chanukah, the Ner Shabbos is not pushing away Ner Chanukah, but Ner Chanukah is part of it, the same thing here. Erasing Hashem's name is part of writing His name. So it's not pushing away the Isra of Mechik Hashem's name. It's part of the mitzvah. Well, if you say Yumtik, this explains also that the Rambam is medayik to schreiben Ner Beisei Kedim. That's why the Rambam writes that between the two, Ner Beisei, the candle of Shabbos, is before. It doesn't. The Shinui from Lashon HaGemara Ner Beisei, the difference, the Gemara says that Shabbos candles is better. What's the difference? But based on what the Rebbe said, we'll understand. Audit can get touched when it says something is better. You could touch it. You could say at the mitzvahs ne Shabbos hat nadifes lagav the zweite ner Chanukah. Mitzvah Shabbos is better, which means when is there far deichad you have two things. One is better than the other, so the better one pushes away the other. So if it would be the pshat that ner Shabbos pushes away ner Chanukah, you could Audit could mean that. The Rambam Medayik and Rambam wants to tell you that's not what it means. Even though the Gemara uses a lashon Odiv, you could touch that way. But I'm telling you, as Odiv do here, when the Gemara says Odiv main blaze, it means Kedem. Kedem means it comes first. Kedem means the Ma'aseh B'Peil. What do you do? Which one goes? This one comes first. Not telling you that this one is better. The Gemara meant, the Rambam is explaining, he's not going against the Gemara, but he touches that what the Gemara says better means, meint mit dem blaze zogen dem din, telling them the din. As in that lock of a pale, when it comes to light, which one should you light? When they're hot nor if he only has enough for one, in their basic item comes first. But not because it's odd, not because it's better. It comes first, but pale, not because if you say better, it means a better thing pushes away a lesser thing. It's not pushing it away. Because Chanukah is, in theory, as if saying, Chanukah is happy that you're not doing Ner Chanukah. You're doing something which will be good for me too, for Chanukah too. In order to explain this, as when es redt wegen Shalom is es nicht beiten als ein Mitzvah Visa, wird nicht different von a zweite Mitzvah Visa. By saying this, that when it comes to Shalom, it's not that one mitzvah pushes away is better than the other mitzvah that pushes away. But das is masse mech mit dem Teichen von der zweite Mitzvah, but that fits also to the other mitzvah. The mitzvah that's, so to speak, not done, also wants this to happen. Is the Rambam, in order to explain that more, is the Rambam mamshich or masbir, the Rambam continues and explains, Godel hasholem shekol ateidah nitnu las sholem beilam. The Rambam brings the next thing. The Rebbe asks, "What's the gay? Why did the Rambam bring that? That sholem is so important that the whole Torah was given to make sholem." The Rambam is trying to explain more what we're just saying now. Ibal das kol ateidah yad mitzvah in yon las sholem beilam. Since the whole Torah means every mitzvah is it's in the sholem. Is verstanden. We understand. Abishas has come to a mitzvah verbunden mit sholem kipshute. So that explains. So both of them are sholem. Because every mitzvah is shalom, whole Torah is shalom. So when it comes to a mitzvah which is not only the inyan of shalom beruchnias, but poshet kipshut is simply it causes shalom, because Ner Shabbos causes shalom, even though that's not the gather of the mitzvah, but it does cause shalom. Kann man nicht sagen, that the mitzvah was spelled shalom is the zweite mitzvah for the mitzvah Torah der Rabbanan. You can't say that the mitzvah of shalom pushes away the other mitzvah. Weil durch ein Kiyum von der mitzvah that brings shalom bepeil, because by doing the mitzvah which actually brings shalom, that accomplishes the purpose of why the other mitzvah was given. Because the whole mitzvah, the whole Torah was given to make shalom. So now you're doing more shalom, better shalom. So the other mitzvah says, you're doing what I'm supposed to accomplish, and you're accomplishing it even better. So I'm asking you, you're doing my job, so to speak. That's why you come first. So the Rambam explains it by bringing in that the whole Torah is shalom. Meat is eich moving was the Rambam of the zwei inyonim. This explains the other question also. The Rambam takes the two inyonim, the two cases. Ad ner beisa yot adin dim legabe ner chanukah and legabe kiddush hayim. These two dinim. That ner beisa, which means ner Shabbos, comes before ner chanukah and comes before kiddush. So what the Rambam did with these two inyonim, Kelo given zusammen. He put them together. Und nicht wie in besondere Fall wie Gemara. He didn't make like two separate cases, like the Gemara separated two separate cases. The Rambam does it for the same reason. The Hadgish to stress, as is eine nicht ganz zwei besondere Protik mit Zivuyim. They're not two separate dinim. As Ner Beis like this, you could say two dinim. One din Ner Beis and Ner Shabbos is Deichech Ner Chanukah, one thing, and another din it's Deichech Kiddush Hayom, it's Deichech Kiddush. The Rambam would make it two separate dinim, but das is in ein und derselbe din. Das is one din. It's one nekude. Gebalt Sholem is Kolas Kavanas Mitzvahs HaTorah V'chol Mitzvahs Kol HaTorah, since Sholem is the purpose of the whole of giving the Torah and all the mitzvahs of the Torah. Kela Lech Nechanik V'Kiddush Hayim. Part of the mitzvahs is Nechanik. Part of the mitzvahs is Kiddush. Is that Tzad HaShovesh Shebehem, the common denominator between Kiddush and Nechanik is what? Is Sholem. Because all the Torah is Sholem. And that is Mechayiv, the Gdimah from their basis. That's what their basis is, because their basis is more Sholem. So it's both not like two separate dinim. It's better than this, so it pushes away this. Better than this, pushes away this. That would be two separate dinim. The Rambam wants to stress it's all one nekuda. There's one common denominator in the whole Torah. So in Ner Chanukah and in Kiddush, and Ner Beis pushes it away because it has the same nekuda that they have in a stronger way, in a more physical way. That's why that comes first. Okay. So the Bible was saying, so because Chanukah is one of the mitzvahs, and mitzvahs are to bring sholem, and this Ner Shabbos is even more sholem, the Mela that comes first. Not because it pushes away. But the Rebbe says, the Shlahamtik, the Shaykhs, Mailas HaSholem for Kol HaTorah, to Hilchas Chanukah. The Rebbe says, I could even add more, not that he's answering Akasha, but he's adding more. We're saying that Chanukah is part of the whole Torah, and the whole Torah was given for sholem. So the Rebbe wants to say that we see more the connection between Chanukah and the whole Torah. While Chanukah is not nur a prat in Kol HaTorah, but nicht in Sholem. It's not that Chanukah is a mitzvah amongst all the mitzvahs. And all the mitzvahs are made for Sholem. So Chanukah is also, that's how you explain till now. But the Rebbe wants to say specifically about Chanukah. No, Chanukah is shaykh to Kol HaTorah. Chanukah is something that has to do with the whole Torah. And since the whole Torah was for Sholem, so that union of Sholem is there in Chanukah. And that's why it moves away to next Shabbos, because that's even more Sholem. Where do we see that Chanukah has to do with the whole Torah? The Rambam is Meirich in order from Hilchas Chanukah, the Sibbe from Kviyas Mechanukah. In the beginning of Hilchas Chanukah, the Rambam explains what was the Sibbe, the cause for having the Yontav of Chanukah and doing the mitzvahs of Chanukah. So the Rambam says like this: Rabbi Shein in the second base, Shemolcha Yovam, Greeks were the kings. They made decrees on the Eden and they tried to destroy their religion. They didn't allow them to learn Torah to mitzvahs. That's what the Chachamim established, the Chachamim of that generation established, that because of that, they made that these 8 days should be every year, days of Simcha and Halal. What does that mean? Because haste. The whole union of Chanukah doesn't come because of specific one prat, one detail. One hot mitzvahs protis, and therefore it has specific mitzvahs. Vishara Yom Tov, it's like all other Yom Tov mitzvahs, whether it's with Rabbanon or with Torah. No, noch mehr goes further. But Chanukah hat sich aufgetan die Yeshua from Gzeiras Klolius. Chanukah, what happened? The Eibusher helped against the decrees of Klolius, of general Torah, from ganzen Das Yisrael, from the whole religion of Yidden, Klolius Eisek HaTorah, the general involvement in Torah mitzvahs. So it comes out that Chanukah contains the whole Torah. And since the whole Torah was given for Sholem, so Chanukah contains the union of Sholem because it's part of the Torah, and it contains the whole Torah because it's celebrating the whole Torah. Therefore, it pushes us, it says, in this case, when you have to write Shabbos candles, you don't have enough for both. Since my union is the whole Torah, and the whole Torah is Sholem, and you are the ones that do us the union of Sholem in a more practical way, you come first. But then the Rebbe says like this: Apia now, according to what we said till now, the Shaykhs from them din their basic Canaan, so Hilchas Chanukah. Normas are the Shaykhs minus Hasholem to Kol HaTorah. So far, we're saying, why is that Ner Shabbos first, not Ner Chanukah? He says, why? Because Sholem. Ner Chanukah is also Sholem. Why is Ner Chanukah Sholem? Because Ner Chanukah is part of the Torah, and besides that, the Rebbe just said it contains the whole Torah. His Norvas Chanukah is Atel for Kol HaTorah. Not that Chanukah has anything specific to do with Sholem in itself. We don't see in Sholem and Chanukah. But nevertheless, because it's part of the Torah and it's to help the whole Torah, that's why we said it's connected to Sholem. His Norvas Chanukah Atel for Kol HaTorah. The Baldober as the Rambam is Ma'irich Beginin HaSholem Hilchas Chanukah Daftir. But everything is exact. The Peil Mamish, where does the Rambam tell us the union of Torah is Sholem? In Hilchas Chanukah. Is Mistaber Leimer makes sense to say as Inyan HaSholem at HaShayach is Michedet Shentechem Inyan HaChanukah. That Sholem has to do with Chanukah specifically. Till now we didn't see how Chanukah has to do with Sholem. It's part of the Torah, and it's the whole Torah, and the whole Torah is Sholem. B'meila, that's why it says in this case Ner Shabbos should be first, but nothing specific in Chanukah. But the Rebbe is going to explain that Chanukah specifically has to do with Sholem. And before we go further, because it's not so clear later on, we have to explain it. I just want to give a certain akdama. What's the union of Sholem? The union of Sholem is to get rid of an opposition. That's what Sholem make peace. There should be no opposition. To get rid of challenges. To get rid of all things which are against, which are menagid. That's what the union of Sholem is. Now, in Torah mitzvahs, we find two inyan, and we'll see the difference in Shabbos and Chanukah. We find the inyan that brings light into the world. Torah mitzvahs brings light into the world. That's not the inyan of destroying the klippos, getting rid of the challenges. It's bringing light into the world. And then there's the inyan of getting rid of the challenges, and that's the inyan of Sholem. Between the two, the Rebbe is going to bring out, between the two, whether it's bringing light into the world or getting rid of challenges, which is the inyan of Sholem, the main thing is the inyan of Sholem. So they're getting rid of the challenges. That's what Sholem is. And that's the inyan of Chanukah. The inyan of Chanukah is getting rid of the challenges, the Rebbe will explain. And that's the inyan of Sholem. Moshel Ner Shabbos be'emes is not getting rid of challenges. Shabbos is to bring light into the world. But when you bring light into the world, it brings Sholem also. So on one hand, Chanukah is different than Shabbos. On the other hand, there is something in Shabbos that has to do with Sholem, because sof kol sof, the physical Sholem happens by the light that Ner Shabbos does. And if that's, so b'meila, when you look at the, Chanukah has very important connection to Sholem, Chanukah itself, and Ner Shabbos originally be'etzem is not connected to the union of Sholem, it's to bring light into the world. But since sof kol sof, physically it brings Sholem, that's when the Ner Shabbos is first. And we'll learn inside. That when das verstehen behagnen, was mir gefind ist, Rebbe starts by saying first, we find that the Aveda Nufta from Torah mitzvahs direkt zu in zwei gedorim klolim. There are two general ideas when it comes to serving Hashem and Torah mitzvahs. Number one, Neicha Hashem Alekecha. It starts with Hashem says, Am Hashem your God, which is an essay, positive. Do something positive. Apula from Chiyuv, a positive act. Then you have Layil Cholakim Achedim, don't have other gods, which is Loises, a negative command. Don't do. Apula for Shlila, don't do this, don't do that. Bechlolos is the Zechilik Tzvish Mitzvah Sesem, it's Loises. Generally, you have Mitzvah Sesem, positive mitzvahs, that's doing something good, doing something. Then you have negative mitzvahs, which means don't do this, don't do this. Now, Zayim mitzvahs Rabbanon, what about the mitzvahs Rabbanon? They're all essence. All 7 mitzvahs Rabbanon, including Chanukah, are all positive things to do. But he says, Zayim mitzvahs Rabbanon, they're all doing something. Isibosam, but what is the purpose of the Zayim mitzvahs? The kavonas, kanosom, the kavona, chias v'shilon saravi, reklei baruch b'kamacha. Another place it says the whole mitzvah, the Rabbanan, is to push away the klippos. And he doesn't explain it here, he gives Maram Akemis, where it says that even though these are mitzvahs that are positive mitzvahs, but the reason the Rabbanan made it is because they felt to get rid of the darkness, to push away the negative things, where Chassidus explains, they made this mitzvah sesser. And das is bechlolos der chilik zwischen Gedering and Shabbos and Gedering and Chanukah. Bechlal, that's the difference in Shabbos and Chanukah. Shabbos is ikra neifen for chiyuv. The main thing of Shabbos is a positive thing. To rest. Now, sometimes you think, what's rest? Rest means don't work. So it's a, don't do something. But it's not like that. The Rambam zog gleich on the Hilchah Shabbos. The Rambam says, beginning of Hilchah Shabbos, like this. Shvisa b'shvi mimlocha mitzvahs eser. That to rest from working on Shabbos is a positive mitzvah. Shenamer, it says, Bayem HaShvi Tishbeis. On the 7th day, rest. Afal pi az Rev Hilchah Shabbos, einen in dem Suk for mitzvahs leisese. Most dinim of Shabbos, how do you rest on Shabbos? By not doing something. There are 39 malachas you're not allowed to do, stay away from doing. The Rambam, when he starts in Shabbos, he starts with a positive mitzvah of resting. Why? While dos is the main thing is not do malachas. Resting as a positive resting. Physically, how do you rest? By not doing malachas. The main thing is the positive thing, to rest. From the Rinyan Amnucha b'Shabbos is not an inyan from Heder. The fact that you rest on Shabbos is not just don't do something, don't do malacha. Nor inyan chiyuvi. It's a part. There's a concept of rest. With us is betchilas abriya, like it was in the beginning of creation. Chazal say, as it is given ha'elam choser b'Shabbos b'Menucha. It says when David should finish the 6 days working, making the world. What was missing? Menucha, rest. Or Shabbos ba menucha. Shabbos came, menucha came. So this is not a negative thing. Don't work. Something positive was missing. There's an inyan of menucha. So there is a concept of menucha, resting from not doing work, and there's a concept of resting, just the inyan of resting in itself. That's Shabbos. So Shabbos basically is a positive thing. The concept of resting. Lieder of the tape of Chanukah, but Chanukah is what? The Rambam is Meirich Vascholos Hilchas Chanukah Canal, like we said before. The Rambam says in the beginning of Chanukah, Gozer Gzeiris, they made decrees. Ubitl Dosam, they destroyed. They tried to destroy the religion. They didn't let them do Teira mitzvahs. The Lochsum, they pressured them. The Govrub Nechashmonoi of them, the Chashmonoim came and got the upper hand, came out victorious and destroyed them, which is an Inyan Shlili. Mavatal given the Gzeiris, the Nagat of Teira mitzvahs. So Chanukah came about because it was a time when they took away the menaged, they took away the challenges, they took away. So Shabbos, the Inyan, the positive, like bringing light into the world, and the Inyan of Chanukah is getting rid of the challenges, which is the Inyan of Shalom, as I said before. The as the main thing is that you're taking away the challenge, and because of that, we have the positive mitzvahs. Apul chayu is something you have to do. What is the main reason for Chanukah? Getting rid of the menagid, of the challenge of the one that's against the canal. Now let's apply that to Shabbos candles and Chanukah candles. The Gedder for Shabbos is the closest in Shabbos Chiyuv. Writing Shabbos candles is like the whole Shabbos. Shabbos is a positive thing. Einig, like I said before. That's what the Rambam holds. What's the Gedder of Neir Shabbos? Like Shabbos. Einig Shabbos, Kovet Shabbos. But the Rebbe Zog the Rambam in Hilchas Shabbos, that's why over there in Hilchas Shabbos, when he tries to tell us what is the mitzvah, the Ike mitzvah of Shabbos candles, in Hilchas Shabbos, he says, as Neir Shabbos, Einig Kovet. Meisev Zanyan Einig Kovet. This adds pleasure of Shabbos, Kovet of Shabbos. But when it comes physically, what does it do? Ner Shabbos is a Neir Ameir. Since Ner Shabbos is a mitzvah that brings light, what happens when you have light? When you have light, you have Shalom Bayis also. There's no challenge. You take away the darkness, you take away the challenges, and there's no more challenges because you won't fall, you won't have the problem. It takes away the problem. So even though the Ikir Inyan of Shabbos is the positive, but Lepel Mamish, that positive of shedding light, also brings about Shalom Bayis, which is the union of getting rid of the menagid. As a Sheilu Maneya takes away, as Bnei Beis is only that because you have the light, your family will not sit in the darkness. Takes that away. You won't stumble. That's not Ner Chanukah, like, by the way. Ner Chanukah, you're not allowed to sit and use the light of Chanukah candles for your pleasure. But Ner Shabbos is made. But that's not what Ner Shabbos is, part of like the positive thing. But it also contains, as a result, a physical Shalom Bayis. Ner Chanukah, look at Ner Chanukah. Chanukah looks like it's a positive thing. It's to bring light, to spread, to reveal the miracles, to bring in the world chiyuv. And therefore, it says you have to be careful and to notify people the miracle. To add, to do something positive in shvach, in praising Hashem. And you're thanking Him Allah Nisim Shosei did. So that's like it looks like it's like that. But on the other hand, that's the result. But the Sibe und Teichen, what is the reason for Chanukah? What Chanukah did was gebracht dazu to brought to this is given in Yonah Heder Shlil. It's to get rid of something, to take away. Seines battle geworden, die Menagdim, those who are opposing God Yiddishkeit were in this battle with Gozuk Zayus. They made a decrease when they didn't let them learn Teirim. When the Shia Miyodam, he saved from them. It's all the shayness of the Rambam. He saved them. The Chashmonoi got stronger than them. But the Rabbi Numan, the Nigud of Teirim Mitzvah, he took away the opposition to Teirim Mitzvahs. But Bechlal is the Inyan HaShalom. This is Inyan HaShalom. And he says, and even this we see through the candles. Like the Rambam says, I said before, when we saw by Adlokas Chanukah, the Rambam said, brings all this, as we said, but the Rambam also says, when it speaks about, the Rambam speaks about lighting the candles, he says, why did we light these candles? Ala Truis, of the help, Ala Nisim, Ala Niflois, the word miracles Hashem did. So we see that in them, the candles, that represents the fact of what was the source of Chanukah, getting rid of the Menagdim, getting rid of the opposition. So Ner Chanukah is the union of Shalom. So the Rebbe started saying, Till before we said, why is Chanukah Sholem? Because it's part of Torah. Torah is Sholem. And Chanukah Befrat, it's the whole Torah. Now he's saying, no, what Chanukah is Sholem. To get rid of the Menagid, that is Sholem. And Chanukah is that. Shabbos is not that. On the other hand, we said before that even though the union of Shabbos is not that, in candles of Shabbos is the light, but the bottom line is, as a result of that comes that it pushes away the problem. It takes away the challenges. It brings light. People won't fall. Und der Rebbe, wenn es kommt die Scheile von der Beise von der Chanukah und der Beise von Kiddush Hayom, so when there comes a question of what comes first, the Shabbos candles or der Chanukah, the Shabbos candles or Kiddush, Zok Hilchas Chanukah. So the Hilchas Chanukah, then Chanukah itself is the Rambam writes it in Hilchas Chanukah as ner Beise Kedem. First comes the Shabbos candles. Why? Yes, as ner Beise is philosopher said in Meir and Peil the Minyan for Shalom Beise Begashmi since by Shabbos candle, even though that's not its inyan. Nevertheless, but it does Shalom Beise. The Gashmi is from that movement. We understand that. So even though we said before that Chanukah is the union of Shalom, but it's only spiritually, pushing away the Menagdim. The mitzvah of Ner Shabbos is because of shedding light, chiyuv, not taking away. The bottom line is it takes away physically. So since Chanukah is the union of Shalom, as we said before, even more than Shabbos, but Lepeil, this has the union of Sholem Bepeil. So therefore, Chanukah itself wants, as their basic Kedem, Sholem basic. If Chanukah is so strong in Sholem, and here you have something that causes Sholem, that's strong, that comes first. But Chanukah, that's why it's all in Hilchas Chanukah. If then bring the Rambam, to this the Rambam brings a proof, Ados was Inyan HaSholem Shlil Samanagid is Machriya Dem Chiv Teis V'Seirem Kedusha, is not nor an Inyan Prot in Chanukah, nor Inyan Klol in Terachas Kol HaTorah. We just said now that which are the two? We have two things. We have the chiyuv bringing light, all kinds of good things that we bring into the world. That's one aved, and then the aved of getting rid of the menagadin of sholem. So we're saying here that sholem is the whole Torah. That means, according to what we said before, if the whole Torah is sholem, means the whole Torah is to get rid of the menagdim, get rid of the challenges against Torah mitzvahs. Torah is to fight the klippos, to fight that. That's the union of Torah. So we said before that is stronger machriya over the sholem of the Eirin Kedusha. That's something that brings Eirin Kedusha. That's not the tachlis. The tachlis is this. Elamai, by Ner Shabbos, even though it's bringing light, it also has sholem. That's why that's. But what is be'etzim stronger? So be'etzim, what is stronger, we said before, is the inyan sholem over the inyan of adding Eirin Kedusha. So he wants to say, so the Rambam brings that this is not only an inyan in Chanukah, nor an inyan kloli in the tachlis v'kol HaTorah. The whole Torah. The tachlis is to get rid of the klippos, to take away the challenges. And he says, where do we see it? You see, you raise the name of Hashem to make sholem between husband and wife. Why? What does that mean? When we talk about the greatest madrege of Hashem's name, Shem Havaya, name Havaya, which is called Shem Ha'etzem, the essence, the essential name, Shem HaMaferish, the clear name, Shem HaMeyuchad, the specific name, that's the holiest name. When you take Hashem's name, you write it down on physical parchment. It does the hechster eif and amshachas v'yisaf as kedusha beilam. So you can imagine how much kedusha brings into the world. It's not that you pronounce it; you're writing it down on a piece of paper. So that brings it into the world. And you still see you will write the name. That means you're bringing a positive thing in the world in order to get rid of something. In order to make sholem bayis. Der ganze tachlis from the pu'ula chiyuvis heisof as kedusha be'elam. The tachlis of why you're writing the name in order to bring kedusha into the world is to lebinyan hasholem shlile. Is in order to do something to make sholem, which is to take away the negative. As on nitzaim der pira b'nei shlish, there shouldn't be the separation. So the Rambam writes this when we ask why does the Rambam have to bring the raya from Shem? Because this proves the same thing. That the main thing is even though you're making a inyan kedusha, but the tachlis is if that should bring to sholem bayis, and that's even more important than the positive part. And the Rambam is mamshech u'meisach, and the Rambam adds an explanation. Ados was godel hasholem is v'akol ha'teira kol nitn sholem be'elam. That why is sholem so great? Because sholem, the whole Torah, isn't there to bring sholem in the world. Dos was Torah nitn. The lashon the Rambam is the Torah was given. Why was the Torah given? Is gegeben geworden lamata in elam hazeh. It was given bo'elam. is nicht nur the leise vere Kedusha in Eich Beilam Atachten. It's not only to bring Kedusha into the world, nor lasse Sholem Beilam, to bring Sholem into the world. But Sholem is neitig, nor dort was is do piru de machlekes medafis mipatel. When you need Sholem, when there is separation, when there's a challenge. So the whole Torah was given for the challenge, to take away the challenge. That's the whole purpose of the whole Torah. That's haze. That means Kol Torah, ganz Torah, the whole Torah, all mitzvahs, Kela leichdi was the gilo is the inyan achiv to make megalas on Kedusha. Even those mitzvahs, which their inyan is positive, to bring more light into the world. Even by them, what is the main purpose? Lass is sholem be'elam, to mevatel sein the minyan in elam, was is menaget Kedusha, to take away the world which is opposing Kedusha, to get rid of that. That's the whole tachlis. So we see that now when you look into this whole Rambam, the way the Rambam says it. Now the Rebbe goes further. The Bir Rebbe, Emek Yosef, we can go even deeper. And this is very important. The Amitis and Shleimus from Sholem is not nor with those was very bodily snagdus from Zweiten and Sver Sholem. The real Sholem is not only that you get rid of the opposition. You have an opposition, and then you get rid of the opposition, and you make Sholem. That's not the real Sholem. Nor as a Svet Amatze when it is überhaupt nicht on die Scheichas Kamatzis from the Menagit. Not only that you get rid of the Menagit, okay, you push them away. You have to make so that there is no more Menagit. The Menagit itself is bottled. The says as a Svetnis Gale, Adam Svetnis Metzias is nicht Menagit, du beschleim Metzias and nicht anders von deinem Metzias. That when you bring out that the other person, the other one Metzias, which was against you, is not really a Menagit. And not only is he not a Menagit, he's not even different than you, he's not separated than you. That's the real union of Sholem. And das is the pnimis dik Pirish and dem was hat Torah nicht nur Sholem Beilam. That's the deeper pshat when it says that the whole Torah was given to make Sholem in the world. What does that mean? Because Be'emes the Rebbe doesn't say what I'm going to say now, these words. Simple prat you learn to bring Torah was given to make Sholem in the world. In case there are people fighting over something, Torah makes Sholem. That's the whole purpose of the creation. It's a different type of Sholem. At the emes and Metzias from Felt is Torah, Elokus. Torah was given to make Sholem, like we just said now. Sholem means to show that the opposition is not only not an opposition, but it's really a part of you. To show that the Welt, Sholem Ba'elam, that the Welt, which is opposing Hashem, because the Welt is a hell of a hester, that's really not. Nicht nor the far Basilikus is Sibis Isavusim Kim. It's not shown not only because the Eibishter is the cause, the reason why there is such a Metzias of Welt. The Alter Rebbe is Mavai by Riches, that the Eibishter Beshav the Welt ständig b'chol Rege Mayin Yesh. Like the Alter Rebbe explains that the Eibishter renews the creation every second. So the whole reason why there's a Welt, because the Eibishter, and that's the Pshat Sholem. Not that. No, but the Etzem Metzias from Yesh HaNibri is the Yesh HaMiti. The whole Metzias of the world, which is a Yesh, a Metzias, which is created, is really, essentially, the Eibishter. That's really what it is. The world itself conceals the light of Hashem. In Welt, in the world, you do not see the Eir Eliki. The world looks, if you look at the world, it looks like a separate entity. So much so that not only you might think that the Welt is not a Lakus, you might even think it doesn't even need Hashem to give it existence. Not only don't believe that it's part of the Hashem, it doesn't even need Hashem to exist. The world is separate from Hashem. As Lashon of the Medrash, you might think Bira Zubelei Manik. This is like a palace which has no leader. Chas v'sholem. Also, with them is given a sinas atayra. The Torah was given last sholem ba'elam, to make peace in the world. Macha sholem zwischen dem elam mit kvayochel dem Eibishter. To make sholem. In other words, when do you make sholem? When there's a fight. There's a constant fight. The world is fighting the Eibishter. The world is hell of a hester. So this is to make sholem between the world and the Eibishter. As I niker v'nirgish. You should feel, nicht nur as the Metzias Welt is nicht kemenagen und stira chas v'sholem zu Lakus. That not only is the world not a contradiction to Hashem, when you say them as a, darf ständig ankommen zum Eibishter. Also, more than that, not only that the world has to come on to Hashem, but as kol Metzius von Elam Guf is Yesh HaMiti. The whole Metzias of the world is only Hashem. Well, if these is moving, so we understand as Chotch and Teiru mitzvahs are yodov beide kavim and Avedas. That teaches you that even though in Teiru mitzvah we have these two styles of Avedas. Chiyuv, positive, Teisus, I'm sure I say, you bring more light into the world. And Shlile, Hasaras Amnag, take away the opposition. Zaber Kabanosa, Matorosa, from Kol HaTeira, from Beide Kavim, Lasa Sholem Beilam. Both of them, the purpose is to make Sholem in the world, meaning Megala Zayin as the Emetz and Metzias from Welt is Lakus, to reveal that the real Metzias of Welt is the Eibishter. But das Kum durch Mavatl Zayin, the Nit Emetz. So what is the pshat to make the world feel it? to get rid of the untruth that's there in the world. What's Welt is Mayim of Alakuza. The world is not true. It covers up on the truth of Hashem. That B'meilan is Gala. If you take away that Helam, you get rid of the opposition. You get rid of the challenges automatically, because this Gala, the Emetz Metzias from Welt, the real Metzias of Welt, which is Alakuza. Das ist verbunden mit Klolos Teichen Hilchas Chanukah. That's connected to Chanukah, which is, we're talking about Hilchas Chanukah. The Nitzochen von Eden und der Bittel Amatze von Gozer Gezeres al Yisrael, the victory of the Eden, and getting rid of the situation when the Gozer Gezeres al Yisrael, the Bartel Dosen, they made decrees and they were Mavatal their religion, but they didn't let them learn Torah mitzvahs. And that happened. How did that happen? It's gekommen durch them was the Chashmonoim and Bayom and sich Meise Nefesh ben Akidesh Hashem. The Chashmonoim went Poshet Amasiris Nefesh. But der Inyan Amasiris Nefesh, nennt sich von Yechidesh aber Amasiris Nefesh comes from the inner essence of your neshama, und das ist die Darge von welcher es kommt damit ist in Shalom. So when they caused Shalom, as we said, mevatel, the klippers that were there that is against Yiddishkeit, came because they brought out the Yechidesh Nefesh, which is the source of Shalom. And as we said before, Shalom means that there is no even question that there's an opposition. Where do you feel that? In that neshama. As a nitome lechatchile kenort for amenagib del mitarev zimvai baruch, that there's no place to begin with for opposition. And that is the level of the Yechidesh Nefesh. That's all fits in together. The inyan of what happened there is that they were Mavatal the Klippas, and Mavatal the Welt that feels against the Eibishter and show that this Metzias of the Welt is the Eibishter. That came because of their Mesiris Nefesh. It came for their Etzman Neshama. But Meilis, Azay, Arabi Kumadech, Bepel, Kipshute, and that since they brought their Neshama out, that made the Pale as governor Yisrael Alavev, that destroyed the enemies. When Chazer Malchus Yisrael, the Malchus came back to the Eden, the Shalom, the Shalva by Eden, Kipshute, Pasha became peace by Eden, and brought the peace into them. Now the Rebbe finishes off from Kol Analysis verstandig. From here we all understand as Eib B'Chol Hashanah Kula Dav Zayin Agrese Shtadlish in the mitzvah von Adlokas Neir Shabbos Kedesh. This whole thing was to explain why is Adlokas Neir Shabbos Kedesh so important. So if a whole year there's an inyan to work on seeing that people should light Shabbos candles, ayed yidische Tochter ich vaardig gas in the gleich mich geelig in uns in Neshek Neir Shabbos Kedesh in Papen Baruch. Whole year you have to work on that. Every girl, Jewish girl, even before the chassan, as soon as she's level of chinuch, should start lighting Shabbos candles. The mechanik and the gebe yeser. Chanukah it's even more important. Numbers of uisnut and the yemei Chanukah b'miuchat to use the days of Chanukah specifically with the meglichste shtadler for the best possible working on it. Nicht nur auf Mifsa neres Chanukah, not only during Chanukah we work on the Mifsa. Chanukah can nur echt zu verstärken Mifsa neshek, to strengthen the Mifsa of Shabbos candles. Those are gem echt hat das Risiko und der Stadler ist krass, was man nennt mit. But you Chanukah in the Tag was coming noch Chanukah. And if you do that, this will strengthen what you are able to take from Chanukah for the days after Chanukah. When you'll gather together all the candles of mitzvah, the Shabbos and the Chanukah, that is an avukah table. When you have a few fires, they're both fire. It becomes a torch. It becomes a big torch, a big light will light up the darkness of the Golus and the Skum, the Gula, al Mashiach Tzedkenu, and the Gula to Mashiach comes. And this Vatzayin Sholom Be'elam Apel, then there'll be actual Sholom in the world. Like the Rambam says, Be'ez Azman Le Yesham Leirov, at that time when Mashiach will come, be no hunger, V'lei Mulchama, no war, V'lei Kina V'tachras, no jealousy, no competition, etc. Where Mashiach Tzedkenu V'et Mesakna Zayin Selam Kulet, Mashiach will fix, and he quotes the Lashon of the Rambam, the whole world. Love it, that the whole world, now it is Hashem B'yachad, they'll all together serve Hashem. Remember, like it says, Ki Oz Epich Alam and Sofa Bruz, the Pasuk it says, Eibishter will make turn around. And all the nations will have a very clear language. That they will, with their mouth, they will call the name of Hashem. They'll all put their shoulders to serve Hashem. And it'll be fulfilled when it says in the Medrash. The David says, if you light Shabbos candle, Shabbos, I will light to you the candles of the Gula. The lighting of the candles in the third Bishamikdash.
Freilich and Chanukah.